Obviously, we're going to start in Zagreb. Now, I was struck by something. I wrote about this. Thomas Tuchel, after the game, he does those flash interviews with broadcasters. They ask them, are you worried about your job? And he says, well, it's not a worry, it's reality. And then he makes a face, which looks just like, and I wrote this, just like Dennis Hopper in True Romance after Christopher Walken, gives him kind of the kiss of death. And he takes a dragon cigarette. Powerful stuff, one of my favorite films. 14 hours later, Chelsea put out the announcement. 12 hours later, he's told that he is out of a job. And this is a firing. This is a sacking. This is not mutual consent, pretendo.
And even if he thought it could happen, I think he was shocked that it happened the way he did on Wednesday morning, really. I think, and that's why he asked the club to say, give me one more game. Let's wait until Fulham. I've got new players coming in. I need to blend them in. I need to integrate them. It's not easy. Look at all the changes we went through. And I think they made their mind even before the Zagreb defeat.
All right. Not as shocked as I am. I'm not shocked that he's gone because, look, we've said this every week, right? We come here and we talk about how bad Chelsea have been this season. And I didn't like Chelsea's recruitment either. However, with the exception of the Spurs game, obviously.
Yeah.
However, there's a simple basic fact, and I'm not saying anything original. A lot of people have said it. How do you, in the summer, decide to go and spend 300 million odd in euros on players chosen by Tuchel, all of them chosen by Tuchel.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you said Carney, Chukwuemeka's one for the future, fine, right?
Yeah, the young
and so
not keen.
You with no experience doing it, you say, okay, fine, I'll back the managers if you're Sir Alex Ferguson. And then 7 days into the season, some of these guys didn't even play. Dennis Zakaria, 0 minutes. Wesley Fofana, 1 Premier League game. Alba, 45 minutes of Drek, by the way. Against Dinamo Zagreb. Or sorry, 60 minutes.
No, but yeah. Wait. I think maybe
this makes no sense.
No, but you could also say that those players would be good with any, like Fofana, okay, he's a Tuchel choice, and maybe they would have gone for Gvardiol, or maybe they would have gone for another centre-back with another manager, but you think that Fofana would be good with
you really think,
you and me as a manager as well. Okay. You don't buy it because he could be good under Tuchel and only Tuchel.
Right. Okay, obviously a good player is good under a good player, right? But and a player, it's like there's no good or bad players, right? It's all about pricing. I learned this from a friend of mine who works at a hedge fund, right? So
true.
Cucurella might be 60 million, 50 million, whatever they played for him for Tuchel. If Tuchel believes in him and whatever. Yeah. Some other dude's going to be like, no, for 60 million, I would have rather had or whatever, right?
No, you're right.
So
you're right.
This is why it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Every club in the world, even the richest club, has finite resources. And so to do this, I don't know. I don't know what Todd Bowley and his friend El Gabi or whatever his name is, who are running the show. I don't know what they're thinking. This is so counterintuitive. There's got to be something that we don't know.
Well, maybe just the fact as well, Gab, that they just didn't get on. They just could not work with each other anymore. And I think it gets to a point where if you
and it took them 3 months to realize this.
Well, no, but I think
it took them 3 months and 300 million to realize that they don't get along with each other.
Because a few weeks ago they talked about an extension. So at some point things must have been better, because I was told that they were beginning of talks about maybe extending his contract. I think it was a slow process in the sense that they didn't see eye to eye anymore. They didn't see the same direction. They were disappointed by the lack of style. I mean, they were not playing well. So
no, I get all that. I get all that.
We were worried. We said it. We got abused by Chelsea fans, and now look where they are with no manager.
Completely. No, I get all that. We're going to get into that more on the Gab and Juls Show. You said no manager. By the time people listen to this, they may have a manager. Graham Potter. Graham Potter has been praised to high heaven, and I think rightly so. I think the job he's done with Brighton has been tremendous. Yeah. I love the guy. I love the idea of a guy who, middling player, tried to get into games. Well, he does have one England under-21 cap, I discovered from Wikipedia. But can't get a look in England. What does he do? He says, I'm going to back myself. I'm going to go abroad. I'm going to go to Östersund in Sweden when they're in the lower divisions. I'm going to do all this crazy innovative stuff. I'm going to prove myself a success from there to Swansea to Brighton, doing it the hard way. All these ex-pros, I'm not given a chance in the game, blah, blah, blah. Well, look, here's a guy who goes and takes his chance abroad, and now he's vindicated. Yeah. That said, it is a leap. And also, at Brighton, Jules, he had Dan Ashworth, he had Tony Bloom, he's got a progressive, outward-looking club. He had a whole structure around him, a structure which right now at Chelsea does not exist.
It's a big job for him, massive job. I think he's courageous to go for Potter ahead of a Pochettino, and we can talk about Poch in a little bit.
Oh, we will.
Because right now, everybody can say to me, like you did, he did a great job at Brighton, he did a great job at Östersund, he did a good job at Swansea. No one can tell me that this is going to work at Chelsea. This is going to work in one of the best clubs, biggest clubs in the world. I'm not sure that fluidity, tactically, changing everything, tweaking all the time, so almost inventing new position for different players because he had an idea of, hey, what if we put this guy there and what about that guy, which I really admire. I think tactically he's got a great brain, but I think this is far easier to do at Brighton where there's no pressure on result apart from not going down than a club like Chelsea with players who are all international players.
But to be fair, that's always been the thing, right? Unless you're Pep Guardiola, there's a few people who start out near the top and have the pedigree as ex-pros and whatever. But the world is full. Thomas Tuchel himself, right? When he goes from Mainz to Borussia Dortmund, I'm not sure. Can he handle the pressure of 80,000 people in the yellow wall and the stars at Mainz? And then from Mainz to Paris Saint-Germain, more stars. And then Chelsea. You know what I'm saying? Like Sarri, same thing, right? These guys who are self-made, at some point, that's always going to be question mark. You roll the dice. I think what helps tremendously in those situations, and this is why I talked about the structure before, is having people around you. The job of a director of football isn't just, at least the way I conceive it, like most clubs conceive it, isn't just to go and stand there when they sign the contract and negotiate the contracts and go and sign players. The job is also to be there, to be a support to the manager, to be a support. We talked at United how so much of that shambles was the fact that, by every indication we've had from people in and around the club, Darren Fletcher and Murta, they didn't have that visible role with the players in the squad media. So this is something that Potter had at Brighton. Still has, because as of right now he hasn't signed.
No.
So I think that is something. For me, the absolute priority has got to be a director of football, a more football person who can be more present and he can show that authority towards the players as well. Yeah,
which is a fair point. And we go back to, I think it was the discussion we had around Newcastle when they were looking for a new manager. You should appoint a sporting director that will be in line with who you choose as a manager. I think it's always a bit odd to do the manager first and then, okay, let's do the sporting director now. And you might get someone who might get a few candidates who are not too keen on Graham Potter as a manager, for example, if he's the guy that you go for. So I would have done sporting director first, but I would have done sporting director a very long time ago. And this is one of the things that Tuchel was not happy with. It was like, this is not how big club works. You don't have your owner suddenly becoming your sporting director when they know nothing about football.
Let's remind people about why they were in this situation. Obviously, 6 months ago, Todd Bowley wasn't thinking about buying Chelsea. Then Vladimir Putin decided to conduct a special police operation, aka war, in Ukraine. Yeah. And then the sanctions came in and they forced sale. Because of the forced sale, what we saw in the summer was essentially everybody at Chelsea who had made the club a success, and I think a stable success, because people joke about, Chelsea always chopping and changing manager. Chelsea actually had a lot more stability in-house because Marina Granovskaya had been there forever. Bruce Buck had been there forever. You had the continuity of Peter Cech, before him Michael Emenalo, before him in a slightly different role, Mike Ford. You had all these people who were actually there a long time and who were really, really good. Scott McLaughlin, another one who maybe not many people know, but was so important in the recruitment, so much power. All of a sudden, all these people are gone. Yeah. All of a sudden, I don't know I'm sure somebody's advising Todd Bowley. I'm sure there's intermediaries. We know he met with Mendes. All of a sudden, you have that. Now, we know that in the summer, they tried to go for Michael Edwards, former Liverpool guru, whatever. Great choice, tremendous choice, logical thing, something you expect Bowley to do.
Because speak to him, for sure.
Yeah, he invests in companies, he's a private equity guy, who are the most talented guys? This guy, fine, perfect. Let's talk to him, right? It didn't work out. Maybe that's what caused the delay. Maybe that's why. Give Bowley the benefit of the doubt.
He's not the only candidate, Gab, though. It's not just Michael Edwards or me then.
Okay, so I will give Bowley the benefit of the doubt here, where, he said, well, we want to get, I agree. I'm going to role play Bowley now. I'm going to say, look, Jules, I gotcha. I know what you're saying. Director of football, most important thing. I get it. I run a baseball team. My general manager is super important because he thinks long term, whereas coaches inevitably think short term, right? The problem is, because I also want to think long term, I want to get the right director of football and not just bring some schlub in, for a year, right?
No, that makes sense.
So we went for Michael Edwards, right? Best in class, arguably, along with the usual candidates. We weren't able to do that. Somebody had to do the deals. Rather than bringing in somebody who, here today, gone tomorrow, I did the deals myself. And I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to support my manager, as best he can. Because Tuchel knows more about football than I do, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to give Bowley the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So do we think this is what happened, right?
Yeah, this is what happened.
Okay.
We know that's what happened.
Where this whole thing falls for me, and what I would love to know, and Todd, you're welcome on the show whenever you like. I mean, we literally are half a mile from where you're staying. You spend all this money, and again, resources are not infinite.
Yeah.
And then you get rid of the guy. And this is what I struggle with. And then, I'm sorry, maybe they were big Potter fans for a long time, although I don't know who put Potter on their radar, whatever. But for me, the other thing about Potter, or any kind of change now, is, you mentioned it before, Potter's never had European football, to this scale, right? On top of that, we have this super congested schedule. Yeah. Potter works on the training pitch. Potter, I always bring this up, right?
You're right.
And what time is he going to have?
None.
They have an international break at the end of September when all the players are going to be away anyway. Yeah. And then it's balls to the wall until the World Cup starts. And this is where your Champions League future is going to be decided. Possibly your Premier League standing. It could be a big hill to climb. What I don't understand is, why not stick with Tuchel until the World Cup and see where you are? The advantage of that is you can better assess some of these guys who've come in. You can see where, I don't, can Tuchel screw it up? Sure. And obviously if you slip down into the relegation places or near the bottom, then you get rid of him earlier, right? Then you're forced to do it. But give it a little more time. For all the chaos and gnashing of teeth and tearing of hair and, biblical plagues, Chelsea are, 6 points out of first place? 5 points out of first place? Something like that? Yeah. Right? They're sixth in the table. They're a couple points out of the Champions League. All right, so they lost to Dinamo Zagreb away. Okay, fine. The group isn't that, it's not irretrievable at this point.
No.
That is the part, that is the mystery that I can't wrap my head around.
There's one point that you haven't mentioned, and it's the relationship between Thomas Tuchel and his own players. Because I think that relationship was very strained already. I mean, English people love this, he lost the dressing room, blah, 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 which doesn't make anything. That doesn't really mean anything. However, that relationship was not great. Maybe not with everybody in that dressing room. There were still probably some guys, some players who still liked him, who still were maybe closer to him than others. But that relationship as a whole wasn't great anymore. I think a lot of the players were disappointed by how the season ended last season, because he had issues, and we said that in his private life, that I think spelled onto the pitch. No, not spelled, but like
they certainly impacted Chelsea's running. Yeah,
and remember the West Ham game where he literally sat down for over an hour on his bench, not moving, not saying anything, not telling anything to his own players who were struggling in a game that they were really, really poor. I think there was a lot of players, because man management and relationship, okay, he's okay at it, but this is not his forte. He's got a very special personality in many respects, and also the fact that he kept finding excuses that were never his fault. And I think a lot of players in the end got a bit fed up by the fact that it was either the referee or the pitch or the players or the fitness or this and that, but never his own tactical choices, where at times it was very hard to understand what he was trying to do on the pitch. And suddenly now they've got no idea what to do with the ball.
What I would say there, and it's 100%, I mean, I had the opportunity to speak to a couple Chelsea players as well, and have done, and that's been the feedback. So the feedback I got, and yours might be different, is that in terms of the leaders in the dressing room, people like Thiago Silva, who is obviously still very important to him, re-up for another season. Jorginho not necessarily super happy of being in and out, but, he still had them on board. But they all, to a man, I think, I'm not putting words in their mouth, but I'm saying is, there certainly were elements there who who were frustrated by playing time, frustrated by his decisions, and not really understanding where are we going with this. I mean, certainly, if I'm Ben Chilwell, for example, I don't understand, or if I'm another player, actually, I don't understand, wait, Chile was okay last year. He's not ripping it up. But is this really where we needed to spend the money? 60 million on Cucurella? Is this really the guy with the hair? Brighton Guendouzi? No, sorry, I'm being unkind. He's a better player. But
it's still a fair point.
And people could see how strained he was. But the thing is, if the players had, and we said this goes back to the end of last season, if they could see it, surely Bowley and Algabi could see it too. Surely they saw it too. Surely then what you do is you make a change in the summer. Or you say, hey, Tommy, work with what you have for now. Let's keep some of these 300 million aside and then see where we are. And then we do a rebuild. And we have the money there for the rebuild.
And there's certainly some players who thought that maybe Tuchel would not be there at the start of the season.
Well, no question there was.
And I think his comments in pre-season after the Arsenal defeat, that was a heavy defeat. Remember where he said, I'm worried, we're not ready. Where are we going? But again, not owning the situation. And I think if you Todd Boehly, you don't want a manager who always find excuses. And I think that again we go down to the relationship between Todd Boehly and Thomas Tuchel.
Todd Bowley. It sounds like you're saying Tom Brady to me.
Tom Brady, sorry. Todd Bowley. Bowley. That maybe at some point you say you know what? This is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to get better. You and I are not going to like each other because we know it. We're too different. We see things differently. I want young players. You want to use that money to buy more experienced players. You want some players like Aubameyang that I don't want in my squad. I don't want to pay 30 or 14 million pounds plus Marcos Alonso for a 33-year-old.
Well, to me, the Aubameyang deal is the pinnacle of this, right?
Yeah, I think this is the last straw.
I know, but you did it. You enabled him to do it. If I enable my child to go and eat ice cream on the sofa and then they spill it all over the place, then it's my fault.
I know, but the new manager would have needed a striker anyway.
He doesn't need a freaking Aubameyang and all that money for this guy.
But then,
seriously, Aubameyang?
No. But in the
what manager wants this?
No. I hear you, but it's still better than no one. So I think he got to a point where he's like,
he's not better than no one because no one in this case is Armando Broja, and I would rather have him than Aubameyang.
But Potter or whoever comes in might play Broja and not Aubameyang at all and freeze him out, maybe.
And then you spend all this money on somebody you don't need and who's unhappy and whatever.
I know. But I think the line was thin in the sense we need someone. Whoever is on that bench, we need someone else. We need another body. I think we could all see that. Maybe not Aubameyang, but it was too late anyway. So it was him or no one. You pick him. But it shows again the tension and the strain between Bowley, Tuchel, the dressing room. I think there was a lot of players in that dressing room who said, really? Aubameyang? When you send Lukaku back, because you could not work with him, by the way. Lukaku going back.
Yeah, after you broke balls to sign him.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about this. I mean, people say, Lukaku was a club signing. Club signing from who? You think Roman Abramovich says, I really need to have the big fella back? No. This was you.
Yeah. So again, this is I understand. I agree with you on the timing and maybe giving him more time. But let's remind everyone that the relationship was bad and the situation was bad for all those decisions that some made that a lot of people didn't agree with and the other way around as well.
Two more points to make on this. One is you mentioned Pochettino. Let's talk Pochettino. If I'm sitting there, you're disappointed.
I think he should be disappointed because he's there on a free, being a proven top 6 Premier League manager already. So not we can say, he was not good at PSG, and that kind of put a little doubt over his ability to go to a club like Chelsea, maybe. But for Graham Potter, it's this is all new to him. Poch knows that stuff.
Okay, again, I'm all about giving benefit of the doubt to Bowley. Are there two other factors which could have impacted this? Number one, this still matters to a portion of Chelsea fans, are the ones who actually go to the stadium, not the ones who are, He's a former Spurs guy. He's a very Spurs guy. The Battle of Stamford Bridge and everything.
Okay, so Conte, AVB. No, but come on. It's not like if managers have managed both.
No, but those guys went in the opposite direction. They all went in the opposite. Well, I don't know. I'm wondering if that played into his head a little bit, right?
Maybe.
I remember years ago, many years ago, when I was a kid, George Graham was linked to Chelsea, and I remember like the whole stadium singing, "You can stick George Graham up your backside." Rightly so, in my opinion.
Well,
but anyway,
I'd love them to sing that at Poch.
So I'm wondering. The other thing with Poch is a pretty forthright guy. So if I'm Bowley, and again, I'm in Bowley benefit of the doubt mode right now, I'm thinking, I want to build that structure with the director of football, general manager, my Michael Edwards type wet dream at the top.
Yeah.
Potter has worked in that system. Potter is compliant in that system. Potter's a collegial guy. He talks to people. Ashworth, what do you think? Okay, I'll trust you here, whatever. Pochettino, both at Paris Saint-Germain and certainly at Spurs, where, they went through several directors of football while he was there.
Yeah.
Maybe isn't so much the kind of guy who says, guy comes in and says, I'm the Poch here. Maybe that played into it too.
Maybe. But I think then if you go down the route of the top managers already, there will be also a lot like that. It's not just Poch. I think there's a lot like that. So
Ancelotti's not like that.
Maybe not Carlo, but he's the exception. But okay, you went down. You are going down the Potter way for that. That's part of one. That's one of the reasons. Okay, let's see if it works. I'm happy for Potter. I want to see him. I'm actually really excited to see if all his methods, all his philosophy tactically can work in there with that dressing room, which maybe there's not big egos like you have in Paris or at United, but it's not an easy dressing room and it won't be as easy as the one in Brighton for sure. And so I want to see it. I just feel like if you're Poch, you have to be disappointed.
Final point on this. Obviously, we've both been in this media game for a long time. And this is kind of something I'm telling listeners out there. Again, I like to lift the lid a little bit on how things work. This always happens when there's a sacking, right?
Yeah.
You get the club want to get their point across. The club employ people to go to speak to journalists on what we call background, where they reveal stories of all the bad things, all the stupid things the manager did. And these are probably generally true. Maybe some are a bit exaggerated. That's why, look, you have it at United. United, on some ways, is the worst. Right? Rangnick goes, all the stupid things, Rangnick, Solskjaer. Oh, all the bad things that were, like Van Halen, his email, and Mourinho was a weirdo. But the same thing happened with Mourinho when he left Spurs, by the way. So you get all the reasons, so that then people can write, like, it is understood, the inside story of this and that, it all comes directly from somebody at the club who doesn't have the guts to be quoted on any of this. Because my take is also, if it's all true, then tell us. Now, Tuchel, on the other hand, well, not Tuchel so much probably, but his agent,
his people,
presumably his people, are doing the same thing. Because that story in Build, which I thought was hilarious, about Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Where, as the story goes, Bowley goes, hey, what do you think, Cristiano Ronaldo? And I can imagine Tuchel rolling his eyes. You remember Tuchel at like 6'5", towering over Bowley, who, I don't know if Bowley is as short as he looks, but he was a college wrestler, right? He's got that squat compact, and just rolling his eyes and saying just simply, no, right? And then it's like, how come? And then rolling his eyes again and being like, do I really have to explain it to you? I mean, unless Bowley want to have a philosophical discussion, I kind of feel you don't need an explanation why Cristiano Ronaldo to Chelsea would have been a terrible idea in so many different ways, right?
But they didn't speak the same language anyway. That's also part of the problem. Right. But I think the worst is that I think Bowley asked a few times through the summer about Cristiano. Hey, still no for Cristiano? No. What about Cristiano? No. Well, what about Cristiano? No. I mean, how many times? If it's not in July, it won't be in at the end of August either.
No. And this is the other thing. I can only assume he had George Vandes in his ear,
of course,
throughout the summer. And again, if you own a club and if you're the interim sporting director, as he put it, you got to talk to George Vandes. It's a fact of life.
Of course.
But equally, enough. Understand. You should know, even you can grow up with football, you should know why not because Cristiano's a bad player or a bad person, but why Cristiano at Chelsea with Tuchel at this time would have really been a very, very poor idea.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.